Hey everyone, welcome back. So you guys wanted the lowdown on all this Tommy Robinson stuff.
Yeah, looks like things are heating up again.
Definitely. We took a look at a couple articles, especially this one from Mirror Online, about his sentencing. And this is a pretty wild case.
It's a big one for sure. I mean, it brings up all these questions about free speech and online platforms. It's not just about Robinson himself. It's about where we draw that line between saying what you think and, potentially causing some real harm.
Right, right. So, okay, for anyone who's maybe not totally up to speed on this whole thing, the article lays it out. Robinson, real name is actually Stephen Yaxley Lennon, is what they're calling a far-right activist. And this isn't his first time in trouble with the law.
Oh, yeah. And it's important to remember with that whole far-right thing, it's not like one simple group, It's all these different ideas and anxieties kind of bundled together. A lot of it is driven by fears about immigration and how society is changing.
Gotcha. So, okay, what exactly got him back in court this time around? The article says he was hit with an 18-month sentence for contempt of court. Most people get that that's not good, but can we just break down what that means, in this specific situation?
Sure. Imagine you're in court. The judge tells you don't do this specific thing. That's basically what an injunction is. So in Robinson's case, back in 2021, the High Court, they issued an injunction saying basically he couldn't repeat certain allegations he'd made against this Syrian refugee. This guy had actually already successfully sued him. And these allegations, they were false. Like the article points out, potentially harmful. So when Robinson ignores that order, he's saying, I don't care what the court says. That's contempt.
Okay, so it's all about respecting the court's authority, basically. But the article mentions he was spreading this false information about this refugee. Was that what the injunction was specifically trying to stop?
Exactly. The court saw that these false allegations, they could have real consequences for this refugee. So they put the injunction in place to protect him from further harm, basically. It wasn't about, silencing Robinson completely. It was about limiting how much he could spread these damaging statements, stuff that was demonstrably false.
Yeah. It sounds like the court was walking this tightrope between Robinson's free speech right and the need to protect this refugee.
Right. You hit it right on the head. This whole case gets right at the heart of that classic debate. Where's the line between letting people speak their minds and keeping individuals safe? And it gets even trickier in this digital age, right, where information spreads so fast, and misinformation, too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
The article mentions this film called Silenced that seems connected to all this. What's the deal with that?
As far as I can tell, this film, it contained those same allegations against the refugee. The ones that had already been deemed libellous. They showed it at a protest. I think it was Trafalgar Square. And Robinson being involved with that screening, that contributed to those contempt of court charges.
Hold on. So he knew about the injunction. He knew these allegations were false. And he still chose to be part of this film being shown.
Seems like it, yeah. The article mentions the Solicitor General argued Robinson knowingly breached that court order, and more than once. This wasn't just like a mistake. It was him deciding to just disregard the court's authority.
The article talks about some pretty strong reactions in the courtroom.
Yeah.
It says Robinson shrugged at his supporters when he got sentenced, and his lawyer was saying he was acting on principles. What do you make of all that?
It's interesting, isn't it? It's like you have this image of defiance, right? He's this martyr for what he believes. But then you have him openly disrespecting the legal system. It makes you think, can your principles justify breaking a court order, especially when it's about protecting someone?
And what about how the public reacted? The article talks about protests in support of Robinson, with people chanting, "We want Tommy out."
Oh.
They had these banners that were critical of UK immigration policies. It seems like this case really hit a nerve.
Definitely. It's this clash of ideologies, this tension between individual rights and protecting vulnerable groups. And it's all happening in this world of social media where information or misinformation gets amplified so easily.
So we've got free speech, court orders, online platforms, social movements. Where do we even start unraveling this whole thing?
Well, maybe a good place to start is with that 2021 injunction itself. What exactly did it say Robinson couldn't do? What were the specific rules, and why was it put in place legally?
You're right. The article says it barred him from repeating those libellous allegations against the refugee. Basically, he couldn't publicly accuse him of those same things that got him sued in the first place.
Right. And that's important because it shows what the court was trying to do. protect the refugee from more harm. They weren't trying to silence Robinson entirely. They were trying to stop the spread of these potentially damaging and false statements. It wasn't about limiting his opinions. It was about preventing the spread of demonstrably false information.
And like you said earlier, this injunction was put in place way before all this that led to his arrest. He was aware of it, he knew what he couldn't do, and still went ahead with actions that broke it.
Exactly. And that makes what he did even more concerning. It wasn't like he was caught off guard. He made a conscious choice to ignore what the court said. It kind of suggests a certain level of, I don't know, defiance maybe, a belief that he's above the law, or that what he believes in justifies what he does.
And that silenced screening seems like it was a key part of all this. The article really emphasizes how the Solicitor General argued Robinson knowingly went against that court order by being involved with it.
Yeah, and that's where social media and online platforms come in. It's not just about what someone says in private anymore. It's about how their words can be amplified and spread to huge audiences online. It's kind of like the whole internet's become this breeding ground for echo chambers, where people only see stuff that already agrees with them. You know what I mean? It makes it way harder to have these nuanced discussions about tough topics.
Yeah, totally. And it's something courts and lawmakers are trying to figure out right now. Like, how do you balance that free speech thing with stopping the spread of harmful misinformation online? I mean, there are no easy answers, right?
Yeah.
This case really shows just how complicated it all is.
Absolutely.
The article also mentions, it says something about Robinson being charged under the Terrorism Act, something about not giving up a PIN code for his mobile phone. Is that part of all this contempt of court stuff?
It's a separate thing, but it definitely adds another wrinkle. It seems like authorities were using Schedule 7 of the Terrorism Act to, get information. And if you don't comply with that, there can be some pretty serious consequences.
So he's got legal trouble coming at him from all sides, basically.
Yeah.
It really paints a picture of a guy who's ready to push the limits, even if it means going up against the law.
Yeah. And what's fascinating is how different people are reacting to this whole thing. The article talks about these huge protests, people super fired up defending Robinson. Then you've got others who see him as this dangerous figure.
Yeah, it's a real reminder of how divisive these issues are. It's not even about Robinson himself anymore. It's about all this anxiety around immigration, culture changing, and how online platforms are shaping the whole conversation.
Right. Robinson's become like this symbol, almost a lightning rod for those anxieties. His case has really tapped into this deep well of frustration and resentment in parts of society.
So how do we even move forward? How do we have these productive conversations when they get so emotionally charged?
Well, I think the first thing is just acknowledging how complicated these issues are. There's no easy fix, and there are valid points on, all sides of the debate.
It's about being willing to hear people out, even if you disagree with them,
Yeah.
and being critical of the information you're seeing,
Yeah.
especially online.
Absolutely. We got to move past these knee-jerk reactions and sound bites, We need to have those thoughtful, nuanced discussions that actually recognize the complexity of what's going on.
So to bring it back to our listener, why should they care about this whole case? What's the big takeaway?
It's not just some legal battle happening far away, These issues, they're the kind of stuff that affects everyone. Free speech, online platforms, how misinformation spreads, they're all shaping our world, the information we see, how we interact with each other.
Yeah, it reminds you that words have power, especially in the digital age. What we say and share online can have real consequences, good and bad.
And it underscores how important critical thinking and media literacy are, We can't just accept everything we see online as fact. We have to question sources, consider different perspectives, and be aware of those echo chambers that just reinforce what we already believe.
It's about being responsible online, basically. Recognizing that what you do online has effects in the real world.
Exactly. And recognizing that these aren't just abstract legal ideas, they have real impact on people and on society.
Yeah. This deep dive has taken us through some pretty heavy stuff, legal jargon, social movements, all the intricacies of online speech. But I think it's been a good exercise in understanding what's shaping the world around us.
It's been a fascinating journey for sure, exploring how law, technology, and social dynamics all intersect. And, we might have ended up with more questions than answers, but that's not always a bad thing.
It's those tough questions, exploring different viewpoints, grappling with these complex issues. That's how we learn and grow. So can we maybe try to boil this all down to some actionable takeaways for our listener? What are the key things they should keep in mind as they navigate this complicated world?
For sure. First and foremost, be aware of that tension between free speech and, responsible expression. We've all got the right to say what we think, but we also have a responsibility to think about how our words might affect others,
Yeah.
especially online, right? Think before you post and be mindful of what you're putting out there.
And it's also important to understand just how powerful online platforms are, but also how they can go wrong. They can be amazing tools for connection and information sharing, but they can also be used to spread misinformation, hate speech, even incite violence.
That's right. We need to be critical consumers of information, especially when it's online. Question sources, think about different perspectives, and watch out for those echo chambers that just reinforce what we already believe.
And this case really highlights that whole debate around immigration policies and the rise of those far-right movements. These are complex issues with a long history and no easy answers. But it's crucial to approach them with nuance and understanding. It feels like we're just scratching the surface with all this. There's so much to unpack.
Yeah, for sure. This case, it's like a mini version of all the big challenges we're facing today. It shows how those decisions in courtrooms, what people do, how we interact online, it all has these ripple effects way beyond just the immediate situation.
It's been a real whirlwind of a deep dive, huh? Can we maybe try to sum up everything we've learned, some key takeaways for our listener?
Absolutely. One of the biggest things, I think, is just how crucial it is to be informed, to be engaged citizens. We can't just sit back and passively take in information, especially not online. We got to be critical thinkers, question where stuff is coming from, look for different perspectives.
It's realizing we all have a part to play in shaping the world we want to live in, and that starts with knowing what's going on, engaging with the stuff that matters.
Exactly. And it's about acknowledging that these issues are messy. There's no easy answers, no simple solutions. It means moving past that black and white thinking, the us versus them stuff, and having those thoughtful, nuanced conversations.
This whole case is really driven home that words have power, especially online. What we say, what we share, it could have real consequences for us and for other people.
Right, the internet can feel like this big, abstract thing, but this case shows that what happens online can have real, tangible effects in the real world. Think about that injunction against Robinson. It was put in place because the court recognized his words could actually hurt this refugee.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one thing you hope our listeners walk away thinking about?
The most important thing, I think, is to remember that we're all part of this conversation, whether we realize it or not. How we interact with information, with each other, and with these online platforms, it shapes everything around us. So let's be mindful, let's stay informed, let's stay engaged, because the future, our future, really depends on it.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking those questions, and keep the conversation going.